We're so glad you're here.
We believe in bringing in experts to inspire and to educate women so that they can live empowered, fulfilled, and successful lives.
When women support women, we change the world. Here we go.
You're going to love this program.
Welcome. Today's guest has had tremendous success in both the large corporate market as a marketing strategist and consultant, and now as a bold and courageous entrepreneur. She's leveraged her successful track record helping corporations with marketing strategy, brand building, partnerships, sponsorships, and event management, and is applying these skills and others to her own business ideas. We welcome Raquel Graham. She's CEO of ROQ Innovation and founder of NEKZ and HEADLIGHTZ, among other products.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. What a wonderful intro.
Well, I haven't even told them what I love. So Raquel started her own marketing business in 2009, and then in 2014, she started her product innovation company, ROQ Innovation, where she develops problem-solving solutions that aim to make life a little easier, which I love. We all need things to be easier. So thank you for all of what you're doing, Raquel.
Thank you. The goal is really to make my life easier. That's
Isn't that
was
true?
really, yes.
Well, that'll
And
be
I'm happy.
interesting.
Yeah, and then I'm happy that others feel the same way because they clearly from, buying the product, they clearly had the same problems and I'm making their lives easier too.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny you said making your life easier because the path to entrepreneurship is really, I would not describe as an easy path.
Um,
Um, it's
Definitely not.
right.
Anything contrary, anything but easy.
It's funny, as founders ourselves, Nancy and I are often asked where our courage came from to jump from our corporate comforts to create a startup. And, where does your courage come from? People talk about starting a business, but
Mhm.
to take the plunge
Yeah,
twice, how
right.
about you?
Well, mine actually came during an interesting time. One, I was consulting at a really large Fortune 500 company after I had left Ebony. And what I found in this company was that I couldn't believe that this was a billion-dollar company because I really was so nervous to even take this account on. And what I found behind the curtain was that I'm not sure if I ever met with the smartest people there, but they had been there forever. And honestly, a combination of that, really, that was a big spark for me, just realizing that I was more than capable of not intimidated at all and realizing that this thing that I was so afraid of didn't really exist. And then life changing for me was reading Brene Brown's book Daring Greatly, which really was life changing and really, really gave me the courage. She speaks in the language that really speaks to me, which is part data, and the way she translates the stories and applies the two, it I think within maybe the first 4 chapters it just connected and I've never looked back. I realized learning from her that when you put yourself out there, and many people dream to do it, but those that do, we are in it's like a sorority or fraternity where we immediately understand each other. We understand the pain. It may not be exact, but it's all very connected. And I've never looked back.
I love that. I think there's such a vulnerability that it takes, and that I love that Brene talks about that. And you
Yeah.
strike me as someone who's willing to be vulnerable, but also really authentic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't even know how not to be authentic, really. And I think it's probably a benefit of mine. I think when people see me in the press and when I talk about my products and other aspiring entrepreneurs, especially female, I think they relate immediately because I really tell it like it is. It has not been easy. I'll share, the financial struggles, you name it, just juggling, um, anything really. When I start a panel, the first thing I say to the people that are booking me is that I do not gloss over details. So if you need it to be nice and shiny, I'm not the person for this panel. So I give, I tell it like it is. And I think that's what people need to hear. They need to know that I didn't just appear, that, that it just happens, because that's not fair to anybody. So, and also for them to see that if I did it, they can too.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because it's a great lead into the next question is that you didn't just appear. You've got a remarkable story, Raquel, at Ebony and then in corporate and then, stepping back to get your MBA and then having
Right.
children. Can you share with us maybe perhaps some of the challenges that you've faced?
Well, I think one of the challenges is always, juggling, first of all, leaping from corporate. A quick backstory: when I was the marketing director at Ebony, I could see, the writing was on the wall that publishing was,
Right.
on its way out. And so after trying to have my second child for 2 years, that was not happening. So I decided, how am I going to go forward with my career? And that was to go the corporate route. So I decided to go to business school, got into Kellogg, and month one, I'm pregnant. And so I, didn't stop. So I was in school full time, um, working full time, now pregnant. And side note, I was building a house. So in 18 months, I had a new baby, new degree, you know,
No
no baby
pressure.
pictures, no, right. And, people relate to that story. I think that you roll with the punches. In hindsight, no one signs up for that. Like, I wouldn't sign up for it again, but I was able to go through it. And that is a story that I think is relatable to women.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so when I had, so now I leave Ebony and I'm thinking about my next steps, and I start marketing consulting, just to pay the bills. And the polar vortex hits, and I create my first idea from the meltdowns and bad behavior from my children, a scarf alternative when they wouldn't wear it. And, I think once again, it's just what you see with me is just like consistently push forward. No matter what the circumstances are, you figure out workarounds, which I think women in particular that's our natural innate brilliance. If we understand that, we know that we have an upper hand when it comes to entrepreneurship, because we're accustomed to cooking and juggling and pickups, and we're constantly managing and multitasking at such a high level, which is required for entrepreneurship, that we dominate in that skill.
I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I also think that, between Ebony and corporate and MBA and starting your business, I think it also speaks to the level of resilience that you have. And, I always say that women are stronger than they will ever know. And, that's something that resonates with me, is that how resilient you were to, kind of to your point, move forward and push
Mm,
past all of that.
I think we all are. But you never really know how resilient you are, because resilience is a result of being tested,
Right.
right? And we all have different. I think I'm hoping that I've pushed through a lot of the all of the things. I hope there are too many more challenges, to the extent that I've had to push through. But I can honestly say that, once again, if I had known a lot of the things were coming, I don't know that people really sign up for that. So sometimes ignorance is bliss to
Mhm.
a certain extent. Now, what I do believe about myself, though, is that I can solve anything. I can push through anything. And there is nothing that I can't do. So fundamentally, that is just an
Mhm.
everyday thought. And I really push that down on my kids, in even with any challenge that they have. The first thing is, okay, well, let's see how we solve it. It's never, even though I'm like, oh, this, I don't know, in my mind, but I want them to know, like, that's the approach. Like, that's the approach. It may be hard, it may not be how we planned it, so many things, but so many things you can push through.
Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
really and that is I mean, isn't that life though?
Absolutely, right? So I think what with the women entrepreneurs that collectively, all of us support, we
Mhm.
find the biggest challenge for women is funding, capital,
Hmm.
right? Taking an idea and scaling it. So, why don't can you share some of the challenges that you had in that regard?
Sure. Well, funding is by far my number one challenge. It has always been, continues to be even, no matter so there are a couple of ways to break this down. So I think some people automatically know and are better equipped to find out where the avenues are to find funding. But as I've spent time in my business, I've grown to know other avenues and pursued them. But I think the level of it's not even rejection, it's just to be entertained, to listen to me. I find to be an incredible challenge, no matter how much I accomplish, to get the ear of usually the guy to listen is, and I can tell you some of my, because I've done basically mostly friends and family. And I
Hmm.
will say for some of the friends that fit into the friends category, it was their wives who got the money from their husbands. Like they connected the dots, right? And in some cases, it would be the daughters of the guy who saw the product and they loved it, and then he went with that. So I find that, I mean, entrepreneurship is challenging, but nothing in my journey has been more difficult than fundraising and access
Hmm.
to capital.
Well,
It's opened up
yeah.
quite a bit now with the accomplishments, but not as much. I think if we do a parallel, a guy's accomplishment and my accomplishments, and I'm up here and he's down here kind of, or failed 4 times, and there's no comparison that he'll trump me every time, for
Yeah,
sure.
that's what's so challenging. The research shows that women are evaluated on
Right.
performance and men on potential, and even venture and all the venture capitalists and the
I have to
venture.
remember that. I have to write that down. I have to capture that
It's so
after
true.
this. Yeah,
And
yeah.
what's when we help coach young entrepreneurs, we help them. I was talking to some other women that work with entrepreneurs and help them reframe those performance questions to potential questions, right?
Right,
Because that's the way we need to be perceived, because that's how others are perceived. So
Right.
how why not us? We don't
right,
it doesn't always have to be about our past performance. It's the same, it can be about both, right?
right.
And
Yeah,
it levels the playing field as well. But to your point, Barbara, we need to be thinking about that aspect also, the potential and not just the performance.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
that's, I don't know if it's because the gatekeepers can relate, but I don't know. We can come up with, I mean, we really know what it is, but you know.
so
But for me, in term number one challenge, and yes, I'm sure we're going to talk about my health challenge, all of that. But this one is just hard to crack, hard to
Mhm.
stomach, but I push through, and it's working. I don't think I'm getting the
Great.
funding that I deserve, but it's coming because the opportunity comes. And then at a certain point, if you're really looking to make money, then I'm thinking at some point you're going to recognize that why not?
right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So aside from the funding aspect, what are the
Mhm.
top three pieces of advice that you can offer women who want to start a business?
Hmm. Top three.
I know that you had mentioned have an idea, the importance of asking, good lines of credit, things like that. What is
Yeah,
it like?
one is definitely around your business plan. And I would say, even with my background and my education, I did not realize how much money it would take. And when I say that, meaning when you're doing well, uh, that's how much more money you need.
Hmm.
So in your business plan, easily, I mean, this may sound nuts, but I'd say just multiply it 3 to 5. Like, you think you may need this amount, multiply that by 3 to 5
Hmm.
But don't you also
times.
find that people at the table want you to ask for more, that they're looking almost for the bigger ask?
Yeah,
Yeah, big
yeah.
point,
So,
Barbara.
and that's another lesson. I think, as a woman, efficiency, budgeting, this is, what we do. So what can I do with the least, thinking that that will get you money? When what I'm learning is that, say venture or people that are willing to invest, they're looking for big returns. So when you're just looking for a small amount, the return, the potential on that is just not worth their time. So this is a lesson for women to kind of, you go for it and you ask for that number. And that is, I think, something that women have to work on, and men don't have an issue with that at all, right? They'll ask with, a two-page business plan, no problem. So I think that you should plan for more. Oh, the other thing is to line up, assume that you're going to succeed, and prior to necessarily getting the big accounts, or before you even get to a growth spurt in your business, line up who may give you access to money, so that when it comes, you're not starting from ground zero to try to scurry to find this money.
Yeah, I have to ask you, before Shark Tank, you were on HSN, you became one of Oprah's favorite things.
Mhm.
How did you deal with the demand that came after that?
Well, I was fortunate. I have I was able to, well, here's the thing. I had already been in business, and these are big names. So it's easier to go ask when you have bird in hand. I've never gotten any money without bird in hand, no matter what. So when I come to you for financing around Oprah or home shopping, I have a mentor who owns a
Hmm.
bank, and he helps me when there are these quick. I get quick loans, and literally that is what has kept me alive. So that is kind of what I'm talking about with in the advice to women. If you have someone in your corner who, you may not need the money now, but you tee them up, like, if this comes through, I'm gonna have to move fast, or it's gonna be a lot of money, or if it's gonna be whatever. I wanna know, would you be willing? Are you in my corner? Can you support up to a certain amount? Where would you fit in? Could you fit in? So that you know. And for me, I have that.
That's fantastic. But you
Hmm.
also had to have the production scale for that.
Well, this was a fast. I guess that's where your network comes in, because when I got HSN, I started production here in Chicago because that's not my background. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how big the business was going to be. So it was great having it here in Chicago, where I could just drive up to the factory in Irving Park and actually see and learn. So that was great. Once I got HSN, I literally had to go to my mentor, like I said, because I had 3 weeks to come up with like $125,000 in order to place the order in China to get it back here on time to sell on air. So through my networking, I was able to get to. I knew a woman who actually um, knew people in China that owned a factory, and she said, if you go here, you won't have to worry about the minefield that it can be. And literally, that's how it happened so
Fantastic.
quickly. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah.
Wow. Well, you have clearly you have a lot of superpowers, but what would you describe as your biggest superpower?
I think I have, well, I know I have, I read people and read the room really, really well. I read situations, I read people a little bit too well, but I can read a room really, really, really well, very quickly. And I think that is so critical, uh, because then you know how to adjust quickly to sway and move things in your favor, or know when to get out of Dodge
Mhm.
and move
Yeah,
on.
that's so
And
important.
that is intuition is there are a lot of arguments against it, just go with data. I think intuition is critical. And a lot of it has to do with I believe in working with who I trust, and that is really uh, an important criteria for me. So that instinct, uh, it weighs a lot. I can work with you if I don't like you, but I cannot like you and trust you. There's a difference, So I'm not
Mhm.
trying to say that you have to have total kumbaya in your business, but not lack of trust is something that I can feel in my gut.
And that's a non-negotiable for you.
That's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
it's and that would exist even outside of my business because, my business is a lot of IP, right? A lot of so the trust is important, but it's not really about the IP. It's about trusting who I work with and who I do business with. It matters to me.
Yeah, I can appreciate that the sense of intuition and trust. And I'm gonna pivot for a moment because I'm
Mhm.
really curious, Raquel, with everything you have going on, mom, entrepreneur, all these different ventures. I know you said the other day you have like 25 different ideas percolating all at once. How do you find fulfillment and joy, and how do you practice, some self-care?
It's definitely I'm a work in progress. Uh One thing I do is I have always put my health first. So I'm an exercise fanatic. I love it. If I didn't have to work, I'm telling you, I'd exercise I'd do weights, then do yoga, then Pilates. I mean, I can't get enough of it. I love it. So that is something that I do give myself every day, or at least 5 days a week. Um, Now that my kids are older, though, I can say I'm getting better because I have a little bit more time. Obviously, I have one in college, so that has been life changing.
Mhm.
Prior to that, though, I can say I haven't been great. I do eat well. I've been eating clean ever since before that was even a term. So those pillars have always been a staple for me. I know they fall under self-care, but those have been things that I've done for forever.
They're just
S-
fundamental to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I do try to vacation. Um, I do try twice a year. I It's hard, but I try
Well,
to make it happen because it's hard for me to detach. One of the things the secrets of the working entrepreneur mom is that it affords you the opportunity, and which is why I did it. It afforded me the opportunity to be there for my kids. I
mhm.
never had to miss anything. There was never, they're both athletes, able to take them to their practices and games and all of that. But the downside of it is that it just adds to your day. So the 3 hours that you took for them to be with them are the 3 hours that you tack on when they go to bed.
Right.
So there's really when I started the company, I wanted the basic. It was I want to be in my yoga pants. That's one. And I want summers off and to be able to be there for my kids. And I got a lot more than that, but it comes at a price. And I am of the belief that you can have everything, just not at the same time.
Hmm.
That's just
Yeah,
right.
I love
So
that.
if
Right.
I'm there for my kids, that means I just may not, there's a period where there's just not a lot of sleep. Something gives.
Right.
It's not everything. You can't have, for me, I can't, I've yet to see where you can have everything at the same time.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, it's a
especially as an entrepreneur, right? You never
yeah.
really shut it down.
You never shut it
Yeah,
down.
it's
And
hard.
if I could figure it out, but it's not that, and I'm a strong believer in working smart. That's another thing. So I'm not scurrying. If I can figure out a way not to do something, I'm not doing it. I'm not a perfectionist. That is not my story. But as your company is growing, I don't see where you break or how to, you know?
It really
So,
may become just a matter of shifting priorities, and compromising in certain aspects of your
yeah,
life. The three
right.
hours, and then you tack those on to
Right.
maybe 10 to 1 in the morning or
Right.
12 in the morning or
Exactly.
something.
But that's
So
what I mean. It's still a matter of it's like a puzzle. You're just moving pieces,
right.
but it's still not all at the same time.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, it's I definitely want to make sure we have time to talk about your how you've been intentional in building your business. You said you
Mhm.
bootstrapped it. What
Yeah.
you really did is kept reinvesting in it. So what about
Yes.
your personal finances? How have you tried to prioritize that and take care of that part of your self-care to make
Right.
sure that you're creating financial wealth for yourself?
Right. Well, what I've learned is that taking care of your finances is really, like, here we go, adding another job. Like, just like how social media is another part of our lives, like we have to be intentional about doing that. um the finance piece is, it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. You have to be deliberate and intentional about, well, what are these goals? I'm in the process of doing that right now. And I think what triggered that is that as I scale and much more revenue is coming in, and I'm getting older, you want these things to, this is just a part of being smarter. You want all of these assets to work for you.
Mhm.
I am not of the mindset that I want to be working this hard in, for the rest of my life. So you want these assets, or whatever your goals are, they're not going to happen. Just like building your business, you have to be intentional to plan it. And that is, I'm in the process of estate planning,
Right.
and, investing in all the different instruments that I can, learning about them, and utilizing them.
Great. Well, it's really about, again, Nancy mentioned prioritizing, right?
Right.
So we have
Right.
only so much time, but that's just something that should also be a non-negotiable at some
That's
point.
right.
You've
That's
had this
right.
great success. Why would you ever jeopardize your ultimate personal success and fulfillment and not take that
Right.
time to prioritize locking in and setting
Right.
yourself up for success there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the things that Barbara and I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs about is, they're so heads down in focused on their business and growing their business and and
Right.
and all of that, but the importance of really pausing to lift
Right.
themselves up, because no one can really be responsible for owning their
Right.
power around their finances except
Right.
themselves. But we
But
totally
also,
appreciate how hard that is as an entrepreneur, but
it
it is
is.
a
But
choice.
Yeah.
but
Right.
also, I think what sparked it also is that as an entrepreneur, you run your numbers, and this P&L, you live and die by it, right? And it also, I think, at least for me, in the beginning, it was a chore. I just couldn't stand that part of the business. But I'm so comfortable with it now, that to be able to look at a document and get this snapshot often to see your progress or not, or where the waste is or not, it becomes just second nature to you. And now what that did is sparked, I want to see a snapshot of how I'm spending. Like what it just made it way more natural
Right,
to
translating it into your personal.
Yeah.
translating. Yeah.
Right. But also
Yep.
as an entrepreneur, when you do that P&L, you've got to pay yourself, right? I mean,
Yes.
initially, so many entrepreneurs don't pay themselves, right? Because
Oh,
they're
I
in the
didn't. I
process.
didn't
Yeah.
initially. And
Yeah.
also there wasn't really enough money going around. Like
Right.
I didn't I was working the first 3 years to support the business.
Right.
So there was no, it was one pot for living, for building the business. It was, because in the beginning you really don't know where it's going. I mean, you're trying this thing, but you don't know. And that's part of the, the risk, the excitement maybe, or the
Right.
or the or the pain of it. I mean, that's what entrepreneurship is.
Or just the
Absolutely.
journey itself.
Right.
But at some
Yeah.
point, when we make those bigger asks to scale, we
Yeah.
have to make sure we're paying ourselves, right?
Right. Oh
Because,
yeah, I'm paying.
yeah.
Yes. I do now.
Yeah. Well, Raquel, this has been wonderful. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to make sure we include?
I don't think so. I just hope that, and I think it does happen just from the feedback, that women getting inspired to do whatever it is. I mean, it. This is our time now and collectively, the more of us out there moving the needle, in this space, the better. Because then it, just
Right.
like I talked about the P&L, it just becomes natural. It just becomes, there are more of us. There's more to share, there's more to learn. And I think collectively we get to change the culture of the things that we were talking about, like, you know, asking for money, being comfortable with asking for a larger amount, all of it. So I hope that my story inspires someone that listens today.
Well, you've inspired us. Absolutely.
Definitely.
That's what it's all about. Nancy and I always talk about when we all win as women, when we win as women, we all win. We
That's
win
right.
bigger, women
That's right.
empowering other women, right?
That's right. Yep. Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time
Thank
today.
you.
And then
Thank
this
you for
great
having me.
conversation.